Minasan konnichiwa. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Nova Nihongo Podcast. I'm your host Tanner, and this is our first official episode, and I'm really excited about it. For those who don't know me or are new here, I'm Tanner, and I am a Japanese teacher, a language lover, a polyglot, and everything in between. So, as our first official episode, I thought it would be a good time to just kind of introduce me and introduce my journey of language learning and just kind of chat for a second about, how I became a Japanese teacher, how I fell in love with languages, all that stuff. So, we're going to tell my story just a little bit. I think just about everybody in the English speaking world, especially the United States, had to take a foreign language back in middle or high school or both, or even as early as, I don't know, elementary school or whatever. I was homeschooled for the first couple of years of schooling. I kind of did pre K and kindergarten kind of smushed together. I don't really know. And then I was homeschooled in first grade and I joined actual public school part way through first grade. In my time homeschooling, we actually had to learn a little bit of Spanish in our curriculum, but it wasn't really anything to write home about. It was just, a few numbers, few colors, whatever, just some basic words and phrases. So from then until middle school, I hadn't really touched a language. So I went to high school and took Spanish again. Yeah, my high school was kind of boring. It really only offered Spanish, German, French, and Latin for some reason. Nowadays, people are getting a lot more variety in their languages. I've seen way more people more recently taking Japanese in high school, which is shocking to me because I totally would have done that when I was back in high school, but I don't know. I don't know why they didn't offer anything other than those four languages, especially Latin. I'm like, can we switch this for something a little more useful than a dead language? I don't know. Like maybe Arabic or Chinese or something that's widely spoken. Even Japanese, whatever. I'd even settle for Thai. I don't know. I don't care. So I took Spanish through 2 years of my high school, just freshman and sophomore year of high school, and I obviously don't remember very much of it. I know a few greetings and phrases and whatever, and then I know very basic verb conjugation only because I kind of touched on it a little bit back in college, just as like a self study type thing. That's really what I remember it from. So yeah, Spanish didn't really jump out to me and didn't really connect with me very much. I kind of just learned it because I had to. It was like, oh, it's the most practical language for US citizens and, English speakers to learn right now. And it's really easy to learn if you speak English natively, whatever, and then you can switch to Spanish, it'll be okay. I'm like, I just didn't really have a reason to. What I did find out though is I liked the process of learning a language. I wasn't really keen on Spanish itself, but I did like the process of, it was like putting together a puzzle with the verb conjugations, with the endings of the verbs and whatever. So I really did enjoy that process, but Spanish just wasn't it for me. So in high school, I dabbled around with some other languages, but obviously, an inept 15-year-old doesn't really know how to learn a language very well, especially on her own. I was in the honors programs and stuff back in the day, so I was taking like Algebra 2 and Trig and all that stuff when I was like 15. I took like AP statistics and a lot of other AP classes, and I'm like, yeah, maybe picking up another language right now is not the best plan. So I kind of had other priorities at the time. Then, after I kind of fell off of Spanish, 2020 happened and everybody went on lockdown. So in 2020, obviously, we didn't really have anything better to do. So I was just kind of chilling at home and revisiting some, you know, old childhood shows that I enjoyed, whatever. And something you should know about me is I am an avid fan of Power Rangers. That is my show, and it probably will always be my show. I don't care. It's fantastic, and it makes me happy. So, I was watching that back in 2020. Honestly, I watch it all the time, so who knows. But back in 2020, I was watching it, and I knew this back in the day, but I remembered that Power Rangers originally comes from Japan. So I'm like, I don't have anything better to do since we're on lockdown. So I went online and I started searching for the Japanese versions of Power Rangers. So I started watching, so it's called Super Sentai, and I started watching it. I watched a few episodes here and there of other shows, like, Time Ranger, Gokaiger, like some of the bigger ones, whatever. And I just connected with Kyoryuger because I loved Dino Charge. But me being me, and we were in lockdown, so again, had nothing better to do. I'm like, I could totally make this show better, and I could totally be in it and be great. Mind you, I was 17, so whatever. But I'm like, hey, I could be part of this show, and when they adapt one of the new seasons, I could be part of it. Look, I was 17, but even now at 23, I'm kind of like, I could still do it. I could still do it. So, Toei, Bandai, if you're listening, hit me up. I'm completely kidding. I'm delusional. It's okay. So, anyway, when I was watching those shows, it just made me really happy. And I'm like, okay, this sounds really cool. I just started listening to them speaking Japanese, and I'm like, this sounds so cool. I love how this language sounds. I'm like, how about I learn Japanese so I can become the next Power Ranger? That is literally my original motivation. And on this podcast, I'm being like so 100% for real. A lot of people are like, yeah, I started watching anime and I was just curious. I'm like, no. I was partly delusional at 17, wanting to chase a random acting dream of being the next Sentai. Is that embarrassing? A little bit. Is it what happened? Mm-hmm. But hey, we can dream. We can dream. It's okay. Obviously, during lockdown, we had a lot of free time, so I'm like, why not? Let's just see what it's all about. See what it takes to learn a language. See what it takes to be fluent in Japanese, just so I can get this acting job that I delusionally wanted. So I started researching. I started looking into what it took and what history of the language there was and all this stuff. I just went down so many rabbit holes. So then I'm like, okay, people are saying that this is one of the hardest languages to learn for English speakers. Why? What is the whole what is the big deal? I don't understand. So then I found, there are three writing systems and one of them has thousands and thousands of kanji. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that'll be hard. And then they said, oh, the grammar is going to be completely backwards from English. The verb comes at the end of the sentence. I'm like, oh, all right, that's new. Okay. So, in the middle of my story, a tip for you guys, for language learners, would be research before you start your language. Look into what it will take to learn that language that you're interested in. What is the writing system? What is the word order, like subject, verb, object, or subject, object, verb, whatever? Are there cases? Are there genders? Are there different tenses that are way different from anything that you've dealt with before, whether you're, just learning your second language, so compared to your native language? Or if you're a polyglot, picking up whatever, your eighth, ninth, 10th, how is it related to something that you already know? So that's exactly what I did. Obviously, I touched on Spanish a little bit, and then I'm a native English speaker, so I was comparing it to those past experiences. And Japanese was not like anything I had ever dealt with before. So for a little bit, I was a little discouraged, and I'm like, whatever, this is just a lot of work, and there's so much to it, which is completely normal when you're looking at languages. Sometimes you get overwhelmed. But then I'm like, I don't have anything better to do. We're in lockdown. It's 2020. I'm stuck in the house. I was living with my parents, obviously, because I was 17. I'm like, I don't know what else I would do to pass this time. So, maybe I can give it a shot. So I started by making flashcards for hiragana and katakana. That's the first thing. So, Japanese tip, always start with the writing system. The sooner you get away from Romanji, the better. It'll make everything much easier because you'll start thinking of Japanese as its own thing as opposed to comparing it to English or Spanish or anything else that's in the Latin alphabet. So that's what I tried to do because that's what all these resources were telling me to do. Just get away from Romaji, actually do the strokes and the stroke order as best you can, practice writing your characters, hiragana, katakana, then a little bit of basic kanji gets worked in, whatever. Something that I used to do that probably would not do as well at now because I'm a little older, but back when I was 17, I would get my physical flashcards. I did physical flashcards. And I would strap a resistance band onto my legs and tie it in with my workouts. So I'd be doing squats while reviewing my hiragana or some basic vocabulary. So I would do my squats every time I would get something right. But if I got it wrong, I would drop to the floor and do a burpee. So it made it harder. So it kind of ingrained those words more into my brain with pain. No, that doesn't always work with everybody, but at the time it worked for me because I was really into workout and fitness and kickboxing and all of that. So it worked for me because I had to do those squats and resistance workouts anyway. So I'm like, may as well tie them together. So here's another tip: habit stacking. Do something that you normally do every day, but add a language to it. So I'm not talking so intense of, squatting and burpees and all this exercise stuff when you're doing flashcards or other language stuff. That worked for me at the time, probably would not work for me now, but it may not work for you at all, and that's totally fine. So when I talk about habit stacking, it's like there's something that you often do, but add a language to it. So while you're doing the dishes, instead of the quiet or instead of listening to music, listen to a language podcast or a newscast in your target language. It just adds something extra to something that you're already doing, but you're experiencing it more in the actual language itself. Oh, after I was learning hiragana and katakana, some basic kanji, whatever, all those things, I wanted to start speaking like really early. I'm like, I don't know where I'm supposed to go after this. Like, I didn't really have a frame of reference that much because I had never self studied before. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if I need a textbook. Do I need a tutor or a teacher or what am I looking for? What is my goal and how do I get there? So I started by taking a language lesson with a native Japanese speaker who obviously also spoke English. So I met with her, and this was on Amazing Talker, actually. This was before italki and Preply really got big. So this was on Amazing Talker, is what it was called. Their user interface is not great, so I wouldn't recommend them now. I would just stick with italki or Preply, but it worked for me back in the day in, you know, 2020, but I probably wouldn't recommend it right now. So I took a tutoring lesson on Amazing Talker, and she was great. I really loved working with her. Gave me a really good foundation. I worked with her, I think, about 6 or 7, maybe 8 months. I'm not sure. It was a while. And I really enjoyed working with her, and she gave me really good foundations in speaking and grammar and all these things that I didn't even think about because I had never self studied before, obviously. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but it was really cool to see how this language worked and how you're supposed to reorient your brain to learn a second language. I would spend a lot of extra time working through vocabulary lists and practicing some grammar and conjugation charts and all this, and it really just made me happy. I'm one of those that does not complain about grammar charts. I love them because it's so organized and it's very much like putting together a puzzle. So I enjoy grammar a lot. Then, when I was preparing to go to college, I was looking for music programs because that was my main major that I was looking into. I was originally music education. But then I'm like, I don't know why, but I have to have a Japanese program. My parents weren't really into it at first. They're like, okay, what are you going to use that for? Just focus on music ed and just do that and don't stress yourself out too much. But I am the queen of stressing myself out, apparently. But I'm like, I can't let this go. I can't just let Japanese kind of fade into the background or whatever. No. So, when I was admitted to my school in Tennessee, I was a double major of music education and Japanese, which was really stressful but really cool. Once I got up to the advanced levels and stuff, I really started getting a foundation of how grammar worked and all that, but my speaking was not where it needed to be. And that's when I met some amazing people that I still talk to this day. They were exchange students. They were from Osaka and Tokyo, and they came to my school in Tennessee, and I became best friends with these people. Literally, one of my favorite people in this entire world lives in Tokyo. Shout out to my best friend Natsuki. I love you so much. We had a Japan club and we would hang out every week, and it was great. Natsuki would come over all the time, and I started learning a lot about Japanese slang just from them and talking more casually and just natural things that they would tell me. And that's also how I started learning Kansai Ben, which is the dialect that they speak in Osaka and Kyoto area. So I started learning that too, which I absolutely love, and I'm still learning that to this day. So that really just kind of changed my life, meeting some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and then experiencing more of the language. It really helped me get more comfortable with speaking. Meeting them really just kind of changed my life. So another tip that I have for Japanese learners, or really any learner of any language, is talk to native speakers. I'm not trying to get you to just like speak choppy little phrases to them, but like if you have a language exchange and it comes naturally, just make friends. That's just how it works. When I talked to one of my friends in Portuguese, and she's great. We just talk all the time. We just text all the time in Portuguese slash English. And then Natsuki and I text all the time in what we call is Japanglish, a combination of the two. And it makes my day brighter. It makes me really happy. And yeah, it might take time. It might have to get out of your comfort zone just a little bit to talk to those people, but it really will be so worth it when you have that connection and that extra motivation to learn that language in a different way. So I did have a little bit of linguistic burnout after I graduated college because it was a lot. There was a lot going on because I had to learn, business Japanese with Keigo and all of that, which was really difficult. And then I had like double Japanese classes for a while, a culture class, and then still had to finish my music industry. It was a lot to deal with. So I needed to take a break for a good 2 or 3 months. Then once I got settled, got a big girl job, moved out, it was a lot easier to get back to what I really loved, which was Japanese and other languages. So while I was in college, I kind of picked up a couple other languages just for fun. I picked up Portuguese in 2023, and that's been pretty constant for a while, which I really loved. And then I've been dabbling back and forth between Korean and German, and now this year I started Indonesian, but I've just had a lot of fun just playing around with some languages lately. But Portuguese is definitely the next one that is the most constant after Japanese. I really love self studying and meeting with a tutor and all that. It just was really fun for me. So then I just kept going and I met with tutors for Portuguese and then for Korean. And then I'm like, I should meet with a tutor for Japanese. Not for grammar or vocab, because I had gotten a really good foundation from college, but then I needed more speaking practice. We kind of think and get on our heads sometimes about being afraid to speak because I'm worried what people will think about me. And they really don't care if you mess up a word here or there when you're trying to speak. In your head, it may just seem much bigger than it is. Believe me, I had that struggle for a long time, but I actually was able to break through it in Japanese when I started doing conversation lessons specifically on italki. My speaking and listening is pretty advanced. I'm pretty comfortable in Japanese now. And I mean, that'd probably be important now that I'm teaching it. So, details. It's definitely a huge deal, in my opinion, to do some speaking lessons where you're deliberately speaking with somebody in a safe environment where you don't feel as scared as if you were speaking with one of your friends. So then, this was also around the time that I actually got laid off from my job. So I'm like, let me just try this. Maybe I can make some extra money while I'm job hunting. Thank the Lord that I got an actual full time job within a month. So that was great. But I started teaching on Preply just a little bit here and there, and then everything just started growing pretty quick, and it was so great. Now I've got some confident students and consistent students, and I love it. I absolutely love teaching Japanese. I just I can't teach English. I love the ideas of going to the JET program to, teach English in Japan. I just can't do it. I would love to, but I can't. I love teaching Japanese, and I really think that it's important to have a teacher that knows how to learn a foreign language. Not just how the language works, but how to learn a foreign language specifically. Because in the beginning stages, especially, you're having to rewire how your brain is processing things. You're having to figure out, okay, go back to elementary school grammar class, and you're like, okay, hang on. I haven't thought about nouns or verbs or adjectives or prepositions since I was like 7. And depending on your age, it's so long ago. It really was. So it really just takes a lot of time and effort to rewire your brain. So why not have a teacher that's done it before so they can help you and give you tips on how to make it work? So maybe it's better when you're a beginner to learn from somebody that learned themselves. That's my opinion. That's my philosophy when I'm teaching. I'm like, when you're that baby beginner, you need somebody that knows what they're doing, knows how to do it specifically for this language, and can teach it to you. So that's kind of what I did. And that's really what I do with my students all the time. And I'm really, really happy with how everything is going. I've got several of my students that are actually going to take the JLPT for the first time this year, which is really fun. And I'm also taking it, not for the first time, but I'm taking it this year too. So I'm going with one of my friends to go take it. So I'm really looking forward to how everything turns out and how they do. I really think that they'll do well, and I'm really excited about it. So if something like that interests you, of course, I've got my links in the description, and I would absolutely love to add to my Japanese students. And I specialize in teaching adult beginners anyway, and I'm certified to teach now, which is really great. So, yeah, that is my story, guys. I know that kind of took a while to yap through, but I appreciate you for listening, and I want to introduce more of how I learn languages and all of that coming soon. And then we're going to have some fun guests come in and talk about their stories, and we'll talk about certain topics of language learning. I just have a lot of ideas, and I'm so excited about this podcast. So I appreciate you for listening, and if you have any comments or anything, please leave them in the comments below. I would really appreciate it, and I would love to read them. Please like, please subscribe, all that fun stuff. We are on Spotify now and on Apple Podcasts coming up. So, yeah, you'll be seeing a lot more of Nova, I hope. So, thank you so much for listening and for hanging out with me for a little while. And I will see you next time in our galaxy. Bye, guys.